I took a batch of sourdough brioche dough and a jar of Nutella, and I turned it into a sourdough Nutella babka. Very delicious, very rich and indulgent. Here's how I did it. I made a batch of my sourdough brioche dough that I showed you how to make on YouTube a few weeks ago, and I let it go through bulk fermentation, or the first rise. Then I just pressed it down into a circle, then a rectangle, and then I took a rolling pin and rolled it out until it was just the same width as my bread pan. So it was about 12 inches long and 10 inches wide. Then I took 200 grams of Nutella, which is almost one whole jar, one of the small jars, and I spread it all over the top of the dough, just like you would if you're making cinnamon rolls with your cinnamon sugar mixture. Then I rolled up the dough into a cylinder with the chocolate hazelnut spread on the inside, using my bench scraper when the dough stuck a little bit to the counter. And once it was rolled up into a cylinder, I pinched the seams closed. Then I transferred the dough onto a sheet of parchment paper, closed the seam again, and moved the dough to the fridge where I let it rest for 30 minutes to get nice and cold. Cold dough is easier to cut and shape. Then 30 minutes later, I took the dough out of the fridge and I cut it down the middle lengthwise with my serrated bread knife. Then I took the two lengths of dough with the chocolate hazelnut spread exposed and I squeezed them together on one end. And then I braided the two lengths of dough together, giving it 2 twists, and then I squeezed the other 2 ends of dough together so the braid would hold. Then I cut the sheet of parchment paper so it would fit nicely into the bread pan, and I gently transferred the dough into the bread pan with the parchment paper and all. Then I covered the dough up with a kitchen towel and let it rise at room temperature for about 7 hours until it had doubled in size like this. Now it was ready to bake. I put the bread pan onto the middle rack of my oven and I placed a sheet pan covered in parchment paper on the rack underneath just to catch any chocolate drippings. This could be on the same rack as the pan, just underneath the pan. That would be fine too. And I baked the babka for 50 minutes at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then when the bread came out of the oven, I brushed it with a simple syrup mixture. This was really simple. It was just 25 grams of white sugar and 25 grams of water that I heated up on my stove over medium heat. This gives the sourdough babka a sticky, sweet appearance and taste. It's definitely a rich bread. Then I transferred the bread onto a cooling rack and let it cool down for about an hour. And then I finally sliced into the bread that was still a little bit warm. This is definitely a rich, decadent loaf of bread that is even closer to being a cake than a simple brioche is. If you like Nutella, I think you'll like this bread. If you like brioche and Nutella, I think you'll really like this bread. If you don't like brioche or Nutella, then